In the playoffs, we expect superstars to take their game to the next level. It's a time for us fans to determine and separate star players based off their playoff performance, taking into account the level of expectations they have. But speaking of separation, what separates teams from each other is the guy who isn't the number one or even the number two guy on the team. Today we are going to look at the 4 biggest X factors in my opinion for these 2020 playoffs, and we're only looking at the real contending teams. But before we start, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, as we are so close to 50 subscribers, guys. Also follow our Instagram at just.the.facts, follow our Twitter at justthefacts1, and let's get straight into it. Number 4, Fred VanVleet. Freddie V has had an amazing season as he and every single player on the Raptors, it seems like, has improved from their championship run last season. Freddie V went from averaging 11 points, 4.8 assists, 2.3 rebounds, 37% shooting from 3 to 18 points per game, 6.6 assists, 3.5 rebounds, and 39% from 3. As we know, he was very clutch in the finals as well as the conference finals. He hit some timely shots down the stretch and was a huge key. This year, the Raptors will need that from Fred VanVleet all the way throughout the playoffs this year. In the 2019 playoffs, Fred was absolutely atrocious for the most part. In the 24 games and 25 minutes played per game, he averaged 8 points, 2.6 assists on 39% shooting from the field, including a 14-game stretch of 3.3 points per game, 22% shooting from the field, and 14% from 3, as well as averaging 2 points in 17 minutes per game in the Philly series. Now, I know that Toronto didn't rely on him nearly as much as they do now, but they certainly will rely on him heavy this postseason. And I know it's harder for smaller guys to excel in the playoffs. I mean, he can just ask his teammate Kyle Lowry. If Toronto's going to get back to the finals, Freddie V must show up, and also considering the fact that the Raptors offense can tend to bog down at times, and they don't have a guy like Kawhi Leonard who can just bail them out of a lot of situations. Fred VanVleet will have to step it up and be that third or maybe even second guy. Number 3, Dion Waiters and or J.R. Smith. Now, the reason why I pair these two together is that they're the newest add-ons to the team. They're both very up and down and boneheaded players, and I feel like both of these guys can potentially impact the Lakers in 2 very different ways. The Lakers, as we know, the 1 seed, and a huge chunk of that can be attributed to the 3rd best defense in the league. But as we've seen in this bubble so far, the Lakers offense can go on some very dry spells. During the first 5 games of the restart, LA had the worst offense of the 22 teams, ranking last in offensive rating, last in field goal percentage, last in 3-point percentage, last in assists per game, and second to last in free throws. Even Anthony Davis has been consistent, having 42 and 34-point games, but also having 8 and 9-point games. Braun hasn't been as efficient as we're all accustomed to him being. Having a guy like Dion or JR would help a ton. I believe that Dion will have a bigger impact than JR due to the fact that Dion can catch and shoot, create off the dribble for himself and his teammates, unlike JR, who's just more of a catch and shoot guy. But besides LeBron and AD and at times Kuzma, no one else on that team can create their own shot. But Dion can do just that. But in the bubble, Dion hasn't been great so far. He hasn't played too much. He has averaged 11 points on 40% shooting and not shooting too well from 3 at 16%. But I'm pretty sure if he were to get more minutes, those numbers will rise. Pretty much all the Lakers' offense is generated by LeBron pick and roll or Davis post up / face up. And having Dion in there for a change of pace, especially when LeBron is out, will definitely benefit LA. JR is a guy I would play alongside LeBron. Unlike Dion, JR fits way better with LeBron. LA ranks 23rd in 3-point shooting. As we all know, they lost Avery Bradley, who's shooting 36% from 3. Danny Green, 6 games in the bubble for him, has only shot 28% from 3. Alex Caruso only shoots 32% from 3. JR can be that guy off the bench who can provide a spark from 3. Not to mention he's capable of hitting some big time shots. If the Lakers can potentially get one of these guys to play significant minutes and shoot the ball at least good, I think that would be good enough for the Lakers to win a championship. Number 2, Gordon Hayward. Now, coming off a devastating leg injury, it's pretty clear that Gordon Hayward hasn't been the same all-star caliber player like he was before the injury. Of course, a lot of that is due to less responsibility from him on the offensive end, having Tatum, Kemba, and Jaylen Brown doing the bulk of the scoring. But I think Gordon pitching in an efficient 13 to 17 points per game on a consistent basis for Boston will do wonders for them. Celtics win 2/3 of their games when Hayward scores at least 18 points, and that's great, but there also have been games where Hayward has scored less than 10 points. And it's looked like the odd man out at times. We all know that Jason Tatum took his scoring to the next level, emerging as the #1 option. We know Walker's an established scorer who can give you 20 to 25 points a game. We know Jaylen Brown's going to give you a solid 20 a game. That being said, Tatum tends to go on some dry spells shooting the ball, and that could open up the door for Hayward to fill in that void for a game or two in the playoffs. And at times it can be very difficult for smaller guards like Kemba to score efficiently in the playoffs due to a slowed down pace, emphasized focus defensively, and simply you're more likely to play a good defensive team in the playoffs. So if Boston's going to reach the NBA Finals and possibly win it all, I believe that Gordon Hayward will need to put up somewhere around 14 to 17 points per game consistently and efficiently. Number 1, Eric Bledsoe. The Milwaukee Bucks have had the best record in the league over the past 2 seasons, and that has been attributed to Giannis, of course, being as dominant as he is, but also because the Bucks have the right system around Giannis, as there are 3-point shooters everywhere except Giannis and Eric Bledsoe in the playoffs. In the 2019 playoffs, Bledsoe's entire stat line just dropped, including shooting splits that plummeted. In the 19th season, he averaged 16 points per game, 5.5 assists, 48% shooting from the field, and 33% from 3. In the 2019 playoffs, however, he averaged 14 points, 4.3 assists, 41% shooting from the field, and 24% from 3. And that's not all. As in the Raptors series, he averaged 10 points a game on 29% shooting from the field and 17% from 3. And in the 18 playoffs, we all know that Eric Bledsoe got owned by Scary Terry. I know I've said multiple times throughout this video that it tends to be harder for smaller guards to be very efficient and effective in the playoffs, but Eric Bledsoe must be better. And like I've mentioned numerous times on this channel before, teams such as the Heat and Raptors have the blueprint to stop Giannis. And those are the 2 teams the Bucks are more likely to play on their way to the championship. And those teams will indeed build a wall around Giannis and force other guys to beat them. As we saw last year in the conference finals, Toronto forced Middleton and Bledsoe to beat them, and they could not get the job done at all. I believe Bledsoe must be that guy, not only because he's capable of knocking down some shots, but he can also play make, and Giannis's playmaking might be limited as well in the playoffs. In the later stages of the playoffs at least. If Eric Bledsoe decides to disappear in the playoffs once again this year, the Bucks championship window might just be disappearing as well. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. Who do y'all think the biggest X factor of the playoffs will be? Make sure y'all like, comment, share, subscribe, man. I cannot wait for these playoffs. We're only like less than a week away, I believe. But this is Jimmy from Just the Facts, and I'm signing out. Peace.